Wherever you are, beneath a heavy blanket, stretched out beside a quiet lamp, or simply listening with your thoughts beginning to loosen, this is a moment for stillness, a moment to slow, to drift, to leave behind the shape of the day and step softly into another. Tonight, we'll return to the past, but not to the great courts of kings, nor to the pageantry of knights, or the polished silence of monasteries, not to marble halls or battlefields. We're going somewhere smaller, rougher, somewhere where history rarely lingers, but where life was dense and unrelenting. Tonight we enter the medieval slum. We won't find romance here, or triumph, or even much quiet. But we will find rhythm, the kind that hums beneath hardship, that carries through mud-caked alleys and behind walls stitched with smoke. A rhythm made of cold mornings, thin bread, and the clatter of too many footsteps in too little space. These are the Backstreets, not of imagination, but of fact. Of London in the 13th century, stone-walled, soot-stained, crowded with bodies, and built with little thought for comfort. This is where children cried behind broken shutters, where market stalls teetered on mud-slick corners, and where the scent of yeast and waste mingled in the early light. This is where most people lived, and this is where we begin. So take a breath, let it move slowly in, then out. Let your hands rest, let your shoulders ease. There is nothing to chase here, only a rhythm, only a story, and it begins, as many do, in the dark quiet just before the day wakes. Let us go back, not to the stories told in books, but to the stories that were never written at all. Let us begin. It's early, not dawn exactly, but the kind of hour when the sky is pale grey, like wet wool, and the sun has not yet decided if it will appear at all. The air is damp, still. The kind of stillness that holds its breath just before the noise begins. You are not in a castle. You are not in a monastery. You are not even in a modest cottage with a thatched roof and tidy garden. You are in the belly of the city, a slum, though no one calls it that. Not yet. Here, near Cheapside, in the heart of medieval London, the houses are packed tight, timber-framed and crooked, leaking at the seams. Their upper floors hang out over the street, almost touching the ones opposite. Beneath them, a narrow alley, more mud than stone, cuts through like a vein. You sleep in a room shared with 5 others. Family, though you may not always feel it. The space is cramped, barely wide enough for the bodies that fill it. The smell is a mix of sweat, smoke, and the sour tang of unwashed cloth. A thin woolen blanket covers you, stiff from repeated use and damp at the corners, as if it never truly dried from last night's rain. There's no chimney in this room, just a small, open grate where smoke from the cooking fire sometimes escapes, and more often doesn't. Soot paints the ceiling in streaks, cobwebs gather in corners. The wood of the walls is warped, blackened, soft from moisture and age. If you press too hard, it gives. Someone shifts nearby. A cough, then another. The straw mattress crackles. There are lice, of course, and sometimes worse. But you learn to live with them. What other choice is there? A sound stirs outside, a wheel bumping unevenly over the stones, a voice calling out. Somewhere a hen clucks indignantly. Another shout. Then the brief yelp of a child whose foot has landed where it shouldn't. The slum begins to wake. You sit up, careful not to hit your head on the slanted beams overhead. The room is dim, lit only by the soft glow of a small clay lamp. It burns animal fat, cheap, available, and pungent. You breathe through your mouth until the scent becomes bearable. Then you reach for your boots. They're stiff, cold. The leather has cracked in places. One toe leaks. You pull them on anyway. Your clothes, woolen hose, a long tunic, a belt of twisted cord, are wrinkled, patched, and worn. The tunic was your father's once, maybe his father's too. The sleeves are too short, the hem uneven. You tighten the belt and roll the cuffs. It will do. The others stir behind you. A woman curses softly as she rises. A man groans and spits into the corner. You hear the sound of someone urinating into a pot, the chamber pot. It will need to be emptied soon, into the street probably, unless someone has a reason to walk it to the latrine trench. You open the wooden door slowly. It creaks on rusted hinges. The morning air that greets you is thick, cool and damp, but already carrying the smells of the street: ash, horses, sweat, and refuse. The alley outside is narrow, barely wide enough for a single cart. The ground is a mixture of packed dirt, scattered straw, and mud. Always mud. The buildings lean inward, their upper floors nearly touching like gossiping neighbours. Ropes stretch across the gap, hung with threadbare linen that waves lazily in the breeze. You step out into the alley. The mud sucks faintly at your boots. It is not yet bustling, but it will be. You can hear it beginning. The distant bark of a dog, the echo of hooves, the metallic rattle of pans being set out on a merchant's tray, a woman calling for her children, another calling for bread. The city has begun to stir. And in this corner of it, where rents are low, where windows are few, where water is never clean, you take your first breath of the day and begin. There is no privacy in a place like this, no space that truly belongs to you. The streets are as much your home as the four walls you sleep inside. The boundaries between inside and out are blurred by gaps in timber, by voices that pass through walls, by the constant presence of others. You know your neighbour's cough, you know the limp in his walk, and the way his door sticks on cold mornings. He knows yours too. The alley is already damp beneath your feet. Overnight, chamber pots were emptied from windows above, their contents slapping the stones with a sickening finality. Some of it runs into the shallow gutters that line the lanes. Some does not. It clings, puddles, pools. Children chase each other barefoot, barely noticing the filth. Their feet are caked, their cheeks smudged. Laughter rings out, quick and sharp, but not for long. A mother yells, and the mood turns. The children scatter like birds. Overhead, the sky begins to lighten. A dull, pewter glow presses against the mist. The city doesn't shine. It seeps through chimneys, through pores, through the narrow cracks in every shutter and plank. A woman stirs a pot over a small outdoor fire. The scent of boiled barley and old cabbage floats on the air. A man squats beside a wooden cart, checking a broken wheel with resigned familiarity. Somewhere behind a shutter, a baby wails and no one moves to soothe it. The noise blends into the day. You move past the doorway of a weaver, her loom just visible through the slats. She hasn't yet begun her work, but the warp is strung tight, waiting. Down the street, someone hauls water from a nearby well, though well is a generous term. It's a pit with a bucket and rope, lined in loose stone and often green at the edges. You'll drink from it anyway later. Boiled if you can manage, ale if you're lucky. You pause at a corner, watching as two carts try to pass each other in the tight lane. One is loaded with firewood, the other with dung. The drivers argue in low voices, but there is no real anger, just fatigue. The same argument repeated endlessly day after day. And above you, the buildings lean just slightly more than they should. Their frames groan in the wind. The walls weep with moisture. Everything is tilted, softened, rotting. But it holds. Somehow, it always holds. You pass a tavern door still closed from the night before. The smell of ale and old smoke clings to the threshold. Someone is asleep against the wall outside, curled beneath a damp cloak, breathing slowly. No one disturbs him. You keep walking. You keep walking. The street widens briefly at the intersection near the parish church. The bell hasn't rung yet, but you know it will soon. Its sound is familiar, not sacred exactly, but steady. A marker. A boundary between early and late. Between hunger and breakfast. And then, just as you begin to think the morning has found its rhythm, someone above empties a bucket. The contents splash into the lane. You flinch, but only slightly. You've learned how to read the angle of the sound. It misses by a foot. You keep walking, not because you have anywhere special to be, but because in this city, this slum of soot and straw, and surviving motion is half the battle. So you walk into the waking mud of Cheapside, and the day unfolds. You've barely stepped outside when your foot sinks just slightly into the thick, brown mixture that coats the alleyway. Not deep, not dramatic, but enough to make you pause just for a moment, enough to remind you again what lies beneath everything here. This is not clean ground. It's a living blend of earth, waste, straw, and rain. A permanent slurry that clings to your boots and seeps into seams no matter how tightly you wrap the leather. It never fully dries. Even in summer, even under sun, there's a dampness to these streets. A slickness. A texture that never quite lets you forget where you are. You begin to walk, slowly, carefully, placing each step with the practiced balance of someone who has slipped before. The middle of the lane is the worst, where cartwheels have dug ruts deep enough to catch and hold every foul thing thrown from windows above. So you keep to the edges where the walls rise high and the shadows stretch long. But even here you must look down, because there is no pavement, no cobblestone, only dirt packed by thousands of feet and soaked through by dozens of nights. There are no gutters in the modern sense, only shallow trenches that guide filth from one end of the alley to the next, sometimes, if they haven't been blocked by rags, or collapsed by the weight of rot. Above you, the buildings lean close, timber frames bowing inward, as if trying to whisper to one another across the divide. Their upper floors project out, casting the alley into perpetual shade. You could almost touch both sides if you stretched your arms. You wouldn't want to. They're slick with rain and soot, and things worse than soot. The eaves drip slowly, not water, always. Not just water. You keep your head down, a voice shouts behind you. A boy running barefoot, his feet slapping wetly against the earth. He darts past, ducking beneath a hanging line of linen, chased by another, both laughing. One slips, recovers, and laughs harder. To them this is normal, this is home. A slop cart passes ahead, 2 wheels and a heavy shallow basin filled with refuse. Human and animal waste swept from the corners of alleys and gutters. The man pulling it grunts. He doesn't speak. His mouth is wrapped in cloth, more habit than protection. The smell surrounds him anyway, draping over his shoulders like a second cloak. You step aside. He doesn't look up. There is no shame here, no pretense, only the slow, steady movement of people through filth, always forward. You round a corner, careful of a pile that glistens with recent rain, or perhaps something else. A dog lingers there, nosing through it. He looks up at you briefly, then returns to his search. Across the way, a group of pigs roots near a crumbling wall, not wild but not quite owned. They are cleaner than you'd expect, though their bristles are clumped with mud. They eat whatever they find, scraps, roots, forgotten things. They are useful here. In their way, scavengers that turn waste into food. Not your food, but someone's. A merchant shouts from a stall ahead. selling eels today. Long, thin, and alive. They writhe in a shallow bucket of cloudy water, bumping against each other. The smell is sharp, tangy. He reaches in with a bare hand, lifts one, and lets it dangle as he calls to passers-by. No one rushes, but some stop. Coins are exchanged. The eel is dropped into a cloth sack, still twitching. Further on, a brewer pours a pale brown liquid from a jug into smaller clay cups. The air around him smells of yeast, of damp wood and warm grain. Children beg for the dregs. A woman slaps one away with the back of her hand. There are no cues, no clear rules, just a shared understanding of space. First come, first seen, first served. A shout erupts further down. Two men argue over a barrel that's rolled into the wrong lane. One claims it, the other insists. Their words are sharp, clipped by accent and age. You recognize neither completely. Language shifts here, word to word, street to street. They don't fight. Not really. After a few more shouts, one walks away. The other drags the barrel out of sight. This is how it goes. Most conflicts here are like this. Loud, short, and then forgotten. You step over a dead rat. Or mostly dead. Its body is stiff, but its eyes are open. It might have died in the night. It might still be dying. You don't linger to check. They're everywhere now. In the walls. In the piles of hay meant for insulation. Beneath floorboards. Some bold enough to run in daylight. The cats help sometimes. But there are too many. And the food, such as it is always available. Behind you, someone empties a bucket from a window. You hear the splash. Then the curse of someone caught beneath. A man swears. A woman laughs. The rhythm of the street resumes. You reach a wider lane, not truly wide, but enough to hold two carts side by side. This is where the foot traffic thickens. The heart of the slum's daily march. People move like fish in a tide, shuffling forward, adjusting without eye contact, stepping aside without words. A beggar kneels against a wall, hood down, hand out. He does not speak. His palm simply opens. Sometimes that's enough. You drop a crust into it. Maybe it was yours. Maybe it wasn't. You keep walking. Ahead, someone plays a pipe. The tune is simple, repeating itself in lilting notes high and soft. It disappears into the alley, caught and carried by the brick and timber. No one applauds. No one asks for more, but no one stops him either. The sound drifts, fades, and now the ground beneath you shifts again. It's softer here, less travelled. The mud is deeper. Your boots leave prints that fill slowly with brown water. You pause to adjust your footing. The alley bends slightly to the right, between two tall, leaning homes. A man pushes past you carrying a basket of fish heads. He doesn't say, "Excuse me," he doesn't look back. His path is clear, yours is not. You turn, double back. Another way then. In this city, the streets don't follow plans. They follow lives. They grow from need, not design. A stall here, a gate there, a shortcut trodden by years of feet. Maps do little good. You learn by walking, and even then it changes. A wall collapses, a cart gets stuck, a building leans just far enough to block passage, and the street adapts, and so do you. You find your rhythm again. Step, slide, adjust. Watch for the slope. Avoid the standing water. Walk with your eyes half down, half forward. Like everyone else, the city breathes here, not cleanly, not deeply, but steadily. In, out, slop, straw, hoofbeats, shouting, laughter, rats. It is not beautiful, but it is alive, and you, for today, are part of it. The street continues to fill. It doesn't rush. It rarely does. But with each passing moment, the air grows thicker, richer with smoke and smell. and the layered, lived-in noise of the day beginning in earnest. You turn toward the mouth of a narrower lane, one you know well, a shortcut of sorts, though not one marked on any map. It cuts behind the Tanner S yard and passes a communal oven where the first warmth of the day is beginning to build. Your stomach tightens, not sharply, not urgently, but with the quiet ache of someone who hasn't eaten since yesterday's dusk. Not really. A few crumbs, a bit of broth, something torn and shared. It wasn't enough. It rarely is. The scent of boiling grain reaches you first. It's subtle, thick, faintly sour, carried on a swirl of damp wind. Barley, most likely, or rye. Cooked slow in a battered pot over a fire so smoky it leaves a black halo on the stone behind it. The smell doesn't exactly make your mouth water, but it means something is warm nearby, and warm matters more than flavor. You follow the scent to a courtyard where several women stand hunched over fires, each one stirring, shifting, scraping. Steam curls from open pots. Children hover at the edges, watching with wide eyes. One tries to dip a hand into a wooden bowl left too close to the ground and is swatted back without ceremony. No one speaks much. The work is familiar, tended more by memory than decision. Grain, water, salt, if there's any. A bit of bone if you're lucky. A chunk of cabbage leaf, something left from yesterday's stall. All of it softened by boiling, all of it held together by patience and hunger. The firewood is cheap, bark still clinging, wet in places. It hisses as it burns, smoke tumbling low before slipping out between crumbling brick and charred beams. You feel it in your throat as you step closer. It doesn't sting anymore. You've breathed worse. A man to your right opens a clay jug and pours out a thin stream of ale into a shared cup. It fizzes slightly, flat but not spoiled. At least, not dangerously. Water is rarely safe here. The ale is weak, barely fermented, but it's enough to settle the stomach, to cut through the taste of tin in the mouth that never quite goes away. Your hand brushes the edge of a wooden bench and you sit. Just for a moment. The wood is damp but less cold now that the fire is nearby. Across the way, a young girl, barefoot, hair tied in twine, squats beside her mother, tossing bits of grain husk to a pigeon who watches, wary and thin. The bird doesn't move closer. It waits. It has learned patience too. You nod toward the pot. The woman tending it glances at you, then gestures without speaking. You hand over a chipped wooden bowl, yours, carried always in your belt, and she ladles in a heavy scoop. The porridge slides in thickly, steam rising. A bit of something green floats near the edge. You don't ask what. You don't care. It's hot. You carry it carefully to the bench, both hands on the bowl's sides. The warmth seeps into your fingers. You lower yourself again and begin to eat, slowly, letting the heat move through you one bite at a time. It tastes of wood, of metal, of dirt, and something like comfort. You don't speak. No one does, not because silence is sacred here, but because talking takes energy. And there is little to spare. A nod is enough. A look. A shift of the hand. Conversation, when it comes, will be brief. Practical. What's for sale? Who owes what? Who was taken by the sickness? Who might be next? Behind you, a door creaks open, and someone emerges holding a tray of what might once have been bread. It's dark, hard, the crust cracked like stone. She sets it on a makeshift table, a board laid across two barrels, and places a chunk of cheese beside it. The bread will cost coin, the cheese more. No one moves just yet. They'll wait to see who has silver, not you. You look down into your bowl, scoop another bite, and chew slowly. The sounds around you begin to swell. Pots clinking, firewood shifting, the low murmur of trade. Somewhere nearby, someone is roasting onions. Their scent cuts through the air like a knife, sharp, oily, familiar. Your stomach clenches again, briefly jealous, then lets go. The bowl is nearly empty now. You scrape the bottom gently with your spoon. A rough piece of barley skin clings to the wood. You eat that too. A boy approaches, hands out. He's no more than 8, filthy. His eyes are rimmed with something grey, something tired. You hand him what's left in your bowl. He nods once, doesn't speak. Sits down where you just were and eats in 2 fast gulps. The rhythm continues. The smell of smoke thickens as more fires are lit, more pots placed. Bread is pulled from an oven with a long-handled paddle and stacked roughly on a cloth-covered table. The loaves are scorched at the edges, pale in the middle. Some have split open, others are solid as stone. They'll be sold anyway. Behind the oven, a woman turns a wheel connected to a bellows, feeding air into the fire. Her sleeves are rolled, her arms dusted in flour. She doesn't look up as someone calls her name. She's done this before. She'll do it again, 100 times, 1,000, and you? You rise from the bench, wipe your mouth with your sleeve. Hook the bowl back onto your belt. There is no sink, no cloth, no soap. The spoon you tuck into the rim of your tunic. You'll use it again at midday if there's food to be had. A dog barks nearby. 2 pigeons fight over a peel of onion skin. A man begins to sing, softly, just a few notes. No melody, no words, just sound. And over it all the city breathes. You walk away from the fire, back toward the street. The mud clings as it always does. The air has grown warmer, but not clean, never clean. The mingled smells of breakfast, grain, smoke, ash, sweat, follow you, layering over the older odors of decay and damp. Another day has begun, not brightly, not boldly, but with warmth, with food, with something in your stomach that wasn't there before. And in this place, that's enough. You walk slowly, the taste of barley still on your tongue, the fire's heat fading from your hands. You do not look back. There is nothing to return to, only forward, always forward. The warmth from the fire fades quickly as you turn back into the street. A breath of wind curls between the buildings, pulling smoke and dust along with it. The smells shift, less of food now, more of people, of bodies in motion, of labor beginning. There is little ceremony to the start of work here. No bells ring, no orders are barked. But across the slums, across the back alleys and market fringes, the machinery of the poor begins to turn. You pass a woman sweeping the front of her home with a bundle of reeds tied with cord. She pushes the dirt from one patch of mud to another. It doesn't make the street cleaner exactly, just temporarily rearranged. She doesn't stop as you walk by. Her eyes are low, her rhythm steady. The work is not for show. Around the corner, a boy hauls a wooden pail of water, sloshing from side to side, soaking his tunic at the hip. His steps are careful. He has done this before. The pail is not for drinking. It's headed to the tanner. You know the place by the smell. Before you reach the yard, it reaches you. A thick, sour odor that clings to the throat. Rot, lime, dung, old skin. The mixture is impossible to name exactly, but unforgettable once known. The tannery sits low in the ground, ringed by rough stone vats filled with liquid in various stages of decay and transformation. Animal hides float, bobbing gently as men lean in with wooden paddles to stir. One man steps back from a vat, his apron soaked, his arms red to the elbow. His face is unreadable, not disgusted, not angry, just resigned. The work is hard, the pay is low, the smell never leaves, but it is work, and that matters. You do not linger. Further on, a cluster of women kneels beside a wide tub, set out in a courtyard. Steam rises from it in soft clouds. They are washing cloth, rinsing, scrubbing, wringing. The water is already grey, already tinged with the dirt of previous loads. One woman lifts a shirt by the sleeves and beats it twice against a stone. Another dips a bundle of rags and squeezes. Their arms are strong, their faces blank. The work is endless. Across from them, in the shadow of a leaning wall, a young man sits on a low stool, his fingers working quickly over a wooden spindle. He's a pin maker, perhaps, or a threader. A small job, a quiet one, but enough to buy bread. Sometimes, near the market edge, the sound of hooves and wheels cuts through the murmur. A carter moves his wagon slowly over the uneven ground. It groans under the weight of barrels. Fish, maybe, or ale. The horse strains. The carter clicks his tongue, slaps the reins. The mud slows them, but doesn't stop them. A child steps aside just in time, pulling a younger sibling with her. No one shouts. Everyone watches their own feet. Labour here is not glorious. It is not noble or clean, but it is constant and wide-reaching. An old man leans against a wall, holding a bundle of thin sticks, kindling for sale. His voice is rough as he mutters his price. No one buys. He shrugs, shifts his weight, and waits. Down the street, a woman stands in front of her doorway. Her hair is tied back with a red scrap of cloth. She calls to a passing group of men, not loud, not lewd, but with practiced rhythm. Her trade is understood. No signs, no discussion, just a glance, a nod, a transaction. She disappears inside with one of them. The others walk on. Further still, an alewife sets out her morning jugs. She works from her home, barely a room, but the smell of yeast and herbs wafts from her doorway. A wooden board serves as a counter, and behind it, a large vat where yesterday's brew still fizzes faintly. The ale is weak, cloudy, slightly sour, but safer than water. She pours a cup for an older man who drops 2 small coins into a bowl. She does not thank him. He does not ask. This is the rhythm. Each corner of the slum holds a trade, some simple, some grim. A woman carries a tray of pins and thread through the alley, calling softly. A man sharpens knives by dragging them across a stone bolted to a post. Children peel onions, skin rabbits, pluck feathers. Everyone works or tries. Even those without formal work find ways to keep busy. Begging, watching carts, cleaning gutters, running errands for a butcher or brewer, for a crust of bread, for a half cup of ale, for a coin smooth with use. There are guilds in London, yes, but not always here. The guilds belong to the richer trades, to weavers, goldsmiths, masons. In the slum, the work is looser, informal, less protected. The line between worker and beggar is not wide. Only a few days' luck. Only a borrowed tool or the lack of one. At the edge of a courtyard, you see a man crafting wooden bowls. His tools are worn smooth, his hands scarred from splinters. He shapes each curve with slow care. The bowls are plain, unpainted, but strong. He stacks them gently beside him, 5 high. If he sells them, he'll eat well tonight. If not, they'll wait until tomorrow. A bell rings faintly in the distance. It is not a work bell, not for people like you, but it marks the hour just the same. The market has opened. Those who have goods will lay them out. Those who have coin will count it, and those with neither will find other ways to pass the time until evening. You walk a little further. The sun is climbing now, though the light barely filters through the haze. The work continues. A man slaughters chickens behind a hanging cloth. A girl kneels in the street, scrubbing a pot with sand. A boy climbs a barrel to reach a window ledge where he stretches to hang a wet tunic on a nail. None of them speak. None of them stop. Work here is not a performance, it is not a calling, it is a necessity, a rhythm, the only thing that separates the morning from the evening. And you? You turn down another lane, your hands are already rough, your boots already caked. You may haul water today, or sweep the square, or carry firewood from one alley to another, or stand waiting in the hope someone needs a back, a bucket, or a second pair of arms. It doesn't matter what the job is, only that there is one, only that the day passes with motion. You wipe your hands on your tunic, draw your shoulders back, and walk into the crowd. Work has begun. The sun has risen fully now, though you wouldn't know it by the light. In these close quarters, hemmed in by leaning timber and shingled roofs that blot out the sky, the brightness never truly reaches the street. The light here is indirect, filtered through soot and smoke, dust and laundry, always shifting, always grey. And as day stretches into afternoon, the mood begins to change. It's not dramatic, not sudden, but perceptible if you know the rhythm. The quiet rumble of labour gives way to something looser, less measured, a little louder. The street begins to feel different. There is more laughter now, but it's edged, sharp. There are more men leaning in doorways, more women speaking in lower tones, more exchanges made with eyes than with words. The day's dignity fades slowly into evening's indulgences. You turn onto a smaller lane, one known for its taverns. The signs that hang above their doors are faded, hand-painted, mostly illegible. A hanged man, a red hand, a barrel with a snake curled around it. Symbols for the illiterate, landmarks for the drunk. Outside one such place, a man plays a fiddle badly. His bow skips, his rhythm is uneven, but the tune is recognizable, and a few passers-by hum along. His cup is empty. He doesn't seem to mind. Inside the tavern, the smell is immediate. Sweat, ale, smoke, and something underneath it all. Spilled beer and sour breath and wet wool. The floor is slick. The benches are scarred. A fire burns in the corner, more smoke than flame. Men sit hunched over mugs, talking low, their elbows spread wide as if to claim space they haven't earned. A woman walks past you carrying 2 pitchers. She doesn't meet your eye. Her apron is stained. Her hands are quick. This is not a dangerous place, not yet, but it could become one. A man in the corner slams a fist on the table, shouting about a stolen coin. The others at his table shake their heads. One laughs, another spits. Nothing happens, not right now. But the tension lingers in the air like steam. You step outside again. The alleys twist more sharply now, the houses lean more drastically. The shadows grow longer, though the sun has not yet dropped. These are the corners where the watchmen hesitate, where crimes are handled not by law, but by custom. You pass a pair of boys throwing dice in the dust. Their eyes flick up as you approach. One mutters something, the other hides the bones in his sleeve. They're not playing for fun. There's money involved, or favors, maybe both. Further on, a man lies slumped against a wall, snoring loudly. His hand still grips the neck of a broken jug. His shoes are gone. Someone took them. He doesn't notice. He may not for hours. Above him, painted roughly on the doorframe, a red mark signals something. Whether it's disease, debt, or disrepute is unclear. But the message is obvious. Be wary. The law here is not written in books. It's written in whispers, in debts remembered, in lines drawn with dirty fingers behind closed shutters. It is maintained by reputation, by muscle, and by fear. You round another corner and nearly stumble over a group gathered in a tight circle. They part slightly as you approach, revealing the source of their attention. 2 boys fighting, one older, the other quicker. No blood, yet. But there's fury in the fists. The crowd watches silently. This is entertainment, or settling a score, or both. No one calls for help. No one fetches the constable. He wouldn't come anyway. The constable patrols elsewhere, near the market, near the churches. Here, in the cramped arteries of the slum, the law walks slower. If it walks at all. There is a night watch, of course, men with staves and lanterns, sworn to keep order after dark. But they're old, mostly, or poor, or drunk, sometimes all three. You've seen one sleeping beneath a stoop, another bartering his watch lantern for bread. They mean well, some of them, but they are outnumbered, outpaced, and outmaneuvered, and the people know it. You pass a woman counting coins with one hand while holding a blade in the other, not threatening, just visible, a message, not here, not now. A few doors down, an argument spills from a doorway. A man shouts, a woman responds, her voice colder than his is loud. A crash follows, a bowl maybe, then silence. The door slams, a dog barks once, then nothing. You don't stop. You know better. Crime here doesn't wear masks, it wears faces, familiar ones, and often it's not called crime at all. It's a deal made in haste, a loan not returned, a shove in the dark, a silence purchased, and punishment, that comes later. Or not at all. If someone crosses a line, truly crosses it, stealing from the wrong person, drawing the wrong blood, justice may come. But not through courts or clerks. It comes in the night, in quiet, in shadow, and it leaves behind no record. You reach a square, or what passes for one, a widened patch of dirt surrounded by buildings that have leaned so far they nearly kiss at the eaves. A fire burns in a barrel at the centre. Around it, several men and women huddle, passing a flask, laughing quietly. One plays a tune on a whistle, off-key but persistent. They are not criminals, they are not innocent. They are people, caught between hunger and survival, vice and necessity. They joke about the watch, about the thief who was caught last week and ducked in the river, about the girl who married the butcher's son and ran off with his coin box. Laughter follows. Then quiet. Then a new voice, soft, urgent, selling something not legal but desired. No one says yes. No one says no. The conversation moves on. You watch for a while, then slip away. The shadows are longer now. The city cools slightly, though the air is still heavy with smoke. You know these streets. You know the way they change after dusk, how a friendly face becomes unreadable, how footsteps behind you linger too long. You keep to the center of the lane, avoiding the corners. You pass a man with blood on his sleeve, not fresh, not explained. He doesn't stop walking, neither do you. A child appears from a doorway, holding a sack half her size. She moves quickly, barefoot, toward the rear of a shop. She glances once over her shoulder, then disappears. You do not follow. You reach your door again, your crooked, smoke-streaked, splintering door. You do not feel safe here, but you feel known. And in this city, that's almost the same. The lock is nothing more than a wooden bar. You slide it into place. It will not stop anyone determined. But tonight, perhaps, it will be enough. You sit down. You listen. The city does not sleep. Not fully, not deeply. It hums, it sighs, it shifts. Somewhere nearby, someone shouts once. A pause, then laughter. You rest your head against the wall and breathe. This is not peace. This is not safety. But it is the closest you will come tonight. And for now, it is enough. The light fades slowly. Not all at once. Not dramatically. It dims as though reluctant, lingering at the tops of buildings, sliding down their crooked beams inch by inch, until only the narrow alleys remain lit by the last golden thread. Evening in the slum is not marked by bells or prayer. There are no grand calls to vespers, no tolling from high towers to summon reflection. Instead, it comes quietly, softly, in the clink of pots being cleaned with sand, in the slap of damp cloth hung out for one more night's attempt at drying. in the soft grunt of a man pulling off cracked boots, the sigh of a woman easing her spine against the wall. The streets do not fall silent, not truly, but their noise changes. Less the business of survival now, more the low hum of endurance. You remain inside, there's nowhere else to be. The air is cooler, still not fresh. It hasn't been fresh in weeks, maybe longer, but the smoke from the fire has thinned. The closeness of the space, the damp, the dark, the unclean corners, feels almost familiar now. Not comforting, but consistent. And that too can be a kind of comfort. You sit on the edge of the low pallet, your feet bare. The chill of the floor seeps through your soles. It grounds you. You stretch your legs, crack your back. Every muscle has a memory of the day, of lifting, stooping, stepping carefully across slick alleys and sinking muck. Your body remembers even when your mind tries not to. Beside you, someone coughs. A child, most likely. The sound is dry, repeated. No one stirs. You've all heard it before. It could be dust, it could be more. But there's no medicine here. No balm, but time. You lie back, the mattress is straw, worn thin, clumped unevenly. It shifts as you do. There's a lump near the base you've stopped bothering to move. The blanket is shared, scratchy wool, patched and stiff in places. It smells of sweat, of fire, of nights like this one, and every one before. Around you, others settle in, not all at once. One mutters about something he's owed, another grumbles about rats. A third pulls their knees to their chest and exhales slowly, a breath long held. Then silence, not perfect, but real. It is the kind of silence made not by absence, but by exhaustion. You scratch at your ankle. There are fleas, of course. There are always fleas. They come with the bedding, with the walls, with the straw. You know their bite. You know how to ignore it. Or pretend to. You've done it enough. Outside the window, if the wooden slat can be called that, a breeze moves. It does not cool the room, not really. But it rustles something, a scrap of parchment, a bit of cloth, a reminder that the world outside continues even now. You close your eyes. Sleep comes in fits. It does not arrive gently. It arrives when it can, between snores, between the shifting of the person beside you, between the drip of water from a roof beam into a bucket someone forgot to empty. Sometimes you sleep deeply and escape more than a rest. Sometimes not. Sometimes the dreams are strange, slippery, full of streets you've never seen, voices you recognize but cannot name. Sometimes you dream of food, sometimes of nothing. A scurry overhead startles you for a moment. Rats. You hear their tiny claws on the beam. You do not move. They will not come down. Not yet. Not unless the food was left out. It wasn't. You checked. You settle again. Someone begins to snore. It's not loud, but it's close. Rhythmic. Like a slow drumbeat muffled by wool. It mixes with the soft wheeze of another's breath, with the creak of timbers as the building shifts in its sleep. In your half-dreaming, you think of the fire earlier, of the bowl of porridge, of the girl feeding crumbs to a bird. You think of the alley where the pigs nosed through the muck, of the boy who slipped and laughed, of the man whose barrel went unclaimed. You think of the tanner's yard, and the man with arms red from lime and lye. You think of the beggar with the open palm, of the woman with the red cloth in her hair, of the alewife and her flat brown brew, of the watchman who will not come. You think of the street as a whole, as a living thing, breathing and pulsing, whispering and waiting. A thing that sleeps only in pieces. A thing that never fully rests. And in the middle of it all, you. No one will sing of you. No record will bear your name. No statue will be carved in your honor, but you lived. You worked. You walked these streets. You endured them. And perhaps in your own way, you belonged to them. The room breathes around you, softly and slowly, like a beast settling into slumber. Someone shifts in the straw beside you, rustling just enough to remind you that you're not alone. The faint glow of the lamp flutters once, its flame low and tired, casting shadows that stretch but never quite disappear. A quiet sigh escapes from across the room, barely audible, almost lost in the stillness. You close your eyes again. Not because you feel at peace, and not because the room offers safety, but simply because the day has ended and there is nothing left to do. Tomorrow will come soon enough. It will arrive, as it always does, with the dull grey of morning light leaking through the boards, with the familiar cough from the far corner, with the dry scrape of feet seeking stiff boots, and with the slow, reluctant step into alleys that never fully dry. But that is not now. Now there is only the stillness, only the slow drift inward. You let go just a little, and the edges of the world begin to blur. Whether you dream or not doesn't matter. Above you the rats find their corners. The wind presses softly against the timber walls. And somewhere, deep in the bones of the city, the slum exhales. Before the revolt, before the banners, before the march on London, there was the stillness. Not a peaceful stillness, but the kind that presses in from every side, heavy, stale, like a room where the windows have been shut too long. Life in the English countryside in the years after the Black Death moved slowly, predictably, and yet something in the rhythm was off. Something deep beneath the soil had started to stir. Imagine yourself there, not in the city this time, but further out, beyond the market roads and toll gates, into the fields, the far-flung villages, where thatched roofs lean low and ploughs cut narrow lines through cold earth. It is the year 1377, or close enough. The harvest is thin again. The spring was wet. The roads washed out. The granary is guarded closely now, though there's little left to steal. You wake before the light because you must. There's work to do, always. Your hands are already cracked from yesterday's labour, and the ache in your legs never fully fades. You tie your tunic with a bit of rope, pull your boots, damp from the evening, onto tired feet, and step out into the grey. The fields stretch ahead of you like a sentence half finished. The land isn't yours, it never was. You work it for your lord, for your manor, for the right to live in a cottage with a leaking roof and a hearth that smokes more than it warms. The dues you owe are many, rents in coin or in kind, days spent working not your own field, but his. Taxes for the king, more for the church, and now a poll tax, a new burden, flat and unavoidable, not based on land or harvest or yield, but simply for existing, for being counted. You don't understand its workings, most don't, but you feel its weight. The collectors came last week, strangers with ink-stained hands and small, hard eyes. They carried lists, read names aloud, demanded coin. Some laughed, some shouted, most paid what they could, or what they had to. There was muttering afterward, quiet voices in corners of barns, words like unfair and enough. But they trailed off before reaching anger. There was still frost in the air. Still mouths to feed, still sheep to tend. You shoulder your hoe and begin the day. The village is small. Everyone knows everyone, but not everything. Some secrets remain. A man owes more than he says. A woman sells more than just eggs. A boy is missing, gone to the forest, some say. Run off, say others. The priest doesn't mention him in the sermon. That silence is its own answer. At the centre of the village stands the church, stout, cold, and unmoving. Its bell rings not for you, but for God. Its walls hold tithes and relics, offerings and records. The priest speaks of obedience, of duty, of the natural order. He speaks of the king and his divine right, but his robe is new and his table is full and his fingers are soft. You do not hate him. Not really. You do not think of rebellion. You think only of the next meal, and the one after that. Still, the air feels different lately. The lord who once passed on horseback now rides with guards. The reeve watches the road with narrowed eyes. There are rumours of men in Essex who refused to pay, of collectors driven off, of a priest named Ball, locked in chains for saying the world was upside down. You've never heard him speak, but the phrase lingers, upside down. Some days it does feel that way. After the plague, when so many died, there was a moment, a brief moment when the world tilted. Labourers were few, fields went untended, and for the first time the poor were wanted. Their work was needed, their hands had worth. Wages rose, voices grew louder, hope too. But not for long. The laws came quickly, wages were frozen, movement restricted. To ask for more was to break the law. To walk to another manor was theft. You belonged where you were born. You owed the land your life, your labour, your silence. And so the stillness returned, but deeper now, more bitter. You press your foot into the soil. It's damp, cold. The work is hard today. The wind cuts through your tunic, and your back protests with every bend. There's no one nearby to complain to. Even if there were, you wouldn't. You've learned to keep your words for things that matter. By midday, the sun breaks through just a little. Enough to steam the frost from the furrows. Enough to warm your neck, your shoulders. You sit for a moment on a stone by the hedge. Share a crust of bread with the boy who tends the sheep. Neither of you speaks, but the silence isn't empty. Overhead, a bird circles. You wonder if it's looking for something dead. You wonder what it would think of you. Later, back in the village, the news arrives quietly, on horseback, via a man you don't know. He wears a badge, but not a smile. There's to be another tax, another levy, this one higher, this one harsher. He reads the decree without emotion. When he leaves, someone throws a stone at his back. It misses. The stillness ripples. In the tavern that night, men drink more than usual. The ale is thin, but it dulls the edge. Someone speaks of John Ball again, of his words, smuggled out of prison and carried like embers from one hand to the next. When Adam delved and Eve span, who was then the gentleman? A few chuckle. One man repeats it, then again, louder. The room doesn't cheer. But no one stops him. That night, sleep comes slow. The wind is restless. The thatch creaks. You hear whispers outside, two men talking by the pigsty. Their voices low, their meaning higher than their words. You listen without meaning to, then turn over and close your eyes. Tomorrow will be the same hoe, the same dirt, the same silence. But something has shifted. The weight hasn't lessened, but it has started to move. You feel it, even if you don't yet understand it, like a stone in your shoe, like a rope pulled too tight. The countryside isn't screaming, it isn't shouting, it is holding its breath, and something somewhere has begun to crack. The wind over the fields changes, though the sky still looks the same. There are no trumpets, no banners, no clamour of battle on the horizon. Yet the feeling has begun to shift, quietly and insistently, like water rising beneath floorboards. Something old and rooted is loosening. Something long endured is beginning to tremble. It does not start with weapons. It starts with words, not shouted but whispered, not decreed but murmured from the lips of men with calloused hands and aching backs, over fences, beside wells, in the dim corners of ale-houses. The words spread slowly, like smoke through thatch, like seeds across furrows. You may not know their origin, but you recognize their weight. Enough. It's not new, this feeling. It's lived in the bones of labourers and cottars for years, but now it has a voice, a shape, and in some villages it has names. They speak of Wat Tyler in Kent, a man like any other, until he wasn't. A Tyler by trade, not noble, not learned, but clear of speech, calm of mind. They say a tax collector came for his daughter, demanded to see her, demanded more, and Tyler, quiet until then, did not plead. He acted. They say he struck the man down, they say others stood with him, they say no one was punished. But what's truth and what's tale? You cannot be sure. The roads twist the story as much as the mouths. Still, the name remains Tyler, a worker who said no and lived. Then there is the priest, John Ball, a man too bold for his own cloth, not a bishop, not a man of wealth, but of words, dangerous words, heretical, some say. He preaches that God made all equal, that the order of lords above and labourers below is not divine, but devised. He calls for a world where none serve, where none are owned. They imprisoned him, of course. They silenced his pulpit, but his words outlasted his voice. Scrawled on parchment, passed by hand, recited in secret. When Adam delved and Eve span, who was then the gentleman? It clings to you, that phrase. It settles in the chest. Heavy but not bitter, it feels like truth. Meanwhile, collectors press further. More coin demanded, more houses searched. The poll tax, now in its third levy, demands from every man and woman not by wealth, but by breath. Children pay, widows pay, those who cannot disappear. Some run to the forests, to the heaths and moors. Some return weeks later, thinner, quieter. Others are not seen again. You pass through a neighbouring village on your way to market. The faces are drawn. A blacksmith's forge lies cold. The baker's window, usually thick with warm haze, stands shuttered. No one greets you, not out of hostility, but caution. Fear walks with every step now, but so does something else. At the market, a man argues with a collector. Voices rise, not in anger, in refusal. The man does not shout. He simply says no and does not move. His cart is turned over, his goods taken, but he does not bow. He lifts the handles of his empty barrow, rights it, and walks away. People notice the air does not stir, but the crowd is listening. One day, a traveller speaks by the crossroads, a tall man in a rough cloak. His voice is low, his words measured. He speaks of what happened in Brentwood, how a tax official was killed, how the crowd grew, how no one stepped forward to name the killer. They all stood together. You listen with others, shoulder to shoulder. He does not call for rebellion. He simply names the moments already past. He reminds you that in some places the collectors have stopped coming. That night you cannot sleep, not from fear, but from the weight of possibility. Something, long thought immovable, has shifted. It is not a fire, not yet. It is a warmth beneath the ash. In the days that follow, small acts grow. A priest refuses to read the names of delinquents from the pulpit. A Reeves' house is found empty, his belongings scattered, his ledger burned. A steward vanishes. A list of names is nailed to a door. Those who collect, those who report, those who have too much and share too little. In each case, no one is seen. No one is caught. But someone acted, and that more than anything unsettles the stillness. You return to your work each day. The sheep still need tending. The barley must still be sown. The land does not stop moving, nor do you. But under the surface of your tasks, there's a murmur, a new rhythm. You carry your tools not just as instruments, but as symbols. The hoe, the scythe, the flail. Not weapons, not yet, but reminders that you are more than hands, that you have a voice, and that voice is growing. At the edge of the village, someone has scratched a symbol into the post. 2 lines crossed, a circle beneath. No one explains it. No one claims it. But each day, it is redrawn. Deeper. Then word spreads fast and far. In Kent, in Essex, in Suffolk, in towns with names you've only heard in stories. Men are gathering, not in mobs, not in riots, but in march. With order, with purpose. They do not burn, they do not loot. Not yet. They move to Canterbury, to Rochester, to Maidstone, to London. You are not there, not yet, but the pull is real. You feel it in your chest like a rope drawn taut. Something calls, something that is not vengeance, not war, not even justice. Something simpler. Enough. The mud beneath your feet has always held your weight, always received your tread, always swallowed your footprints without complaint. But now it speaks back. It carries you forward, and you are not alone. You rise before the sun, not because the work calls, but because the road does. It begins quietly. You lace your boots, sling a cloth of food across your back, some barley bread, an onion, a wedge of salt cheese, and you step outside into the grey hush of morning. Others stand at the edge of the lane, waiting without words. Their eyes meet yours, and that is enough. You walk. You are not alone. They come from the hills, from the low, wet meadows, from manors and hamlets tucked behind hedgerows and winding lanes, some with pitchforks, some with nothing more than their hands. They walk not with shouting, but with purpose. Not in anger, but with something deeper, resolve, carried beneath the skin like breath. The march begins as a trickle, a few dozen men from Kent and Essex, then more. Scores from village after village, shoeless boys with tired smiles, mothers with woven shawls pulled tight around their shoulders, old men with careful steps and sharp eyes, all moving in the same direction, all quiet. The road is narrow, but it holds them, and as the path widens, so too does the crowd. They walk through dew-soaked fields and across stone bridges still slick from the river mist. They pass under arching trees that have stood for centuries, silent witnesses to change. Each step presses into the mud, each footfall leaving a mark too shallow to last, but too many to ignore. There are no drums, no banners at first, but someone carries a pole with a cap tied to it, red, woolen, swinging gently in the breeze. A symbol, a joke, perhaps, but one that means more with every mile. The sky clears by mid-morning, sunlight glints off scythe blades and polished belt buckles. You can smell the scent of earth warming, of sweat rising from cloth and skin, of crushed grass beneath hundreds of heels. The march does not quicken, it does not falter. It is the pace of those who have walked many miles before, who know the strength of steady movement. Along the way the countryside watches. Some stand by the road and stare. Some cheer softly, unsure but hopeful. Others turn away, closing shutters, pulling children close. Fear and faith walk side by side here, and you feel both. At midday the march stops at a well. Hands are cupped. Water passed. Bread broken. Someone sings, a low tune with no words, only the rise and fall of notes remembered from childhood. It is not joyous, but it is strong. The song carries for yards, then fades, and still you walk. Through Dartford, through Rochester, Maidstone. Each name echoes down the line as you near, the chant passed forward like a flame. In some places gates open before you arrive, in others they remain shut, until pressed, by the crowd's presence, not broken down, not stormed, just waited out. In Canterbury you see a church official step aside, robe fluttering behind him. His eyes do not meet yours. You sleep by hedgerows, on barn floors offered by sympathizers, beside strangers who no longer feel strange. You share food, stories, old wounds, old jokes. You speak in quiet tones, even when no one's listening. The silence of the march is not from fear, it is from knowing. The words come more easily now. We are marching on London, spoken like a fact, like weather. Not long ago the city was a dream, distant, unreachable, but with each step the dream takes shape, smoke rising in the far distance, a shimmer of towers through heat haze, the shape of walls beneath the weight of sky. London, it is not your world, it never was, but now it stands waiting. As you draw near, the air thickens. Not with heat, but with presence. Guards gather at the edges, lords ride in and out, but they do not stop the march. They cannot. There are too many, too certain, and the law does not walk quickly when the streets are full. Inside the city, rumours run ahead of you, that an army of peasants approaches, that the fields have emptied, that they are coming for blood. But you are not an army. You carry no flag, no oath of violence, only the weight of too many years spent bent low. You camp outside the gates, near Blackheath. The grass is high, the wind is soft. You rest with thousands around you, men and women, children and elders. Fires flicker low, not high. There is no drunkenness, no madness, only the murmur of tired voices and the hush of night. John Ball has been released. They say he walks among the tents, that he speaks by firelight, that he quotes scripture, but gently. Now is the time, he says. Now is the hour. You believe him, not because of what he says, but because you are here, because the fields behind you stretch empty and the road ahead is open, because the king must listen, because the world has shifted beneath your feet. You sleep that night not in fear, but in expectation. And the next morning, the gates open. You do not rush. You do not storm. You walk as you have for miles into the city. London greets you with stone streets and towers of wealth, with smells both sweet and foul, with bells that chime even when no one listens. It is too large to see at once, too loud to fully understand. But you are not here to understand. You are here to be seen. The march winds through Southwark, crosses the bridge, spills into the heart of the capital. You walk past houses of carved oak, past market stalls and guild halls, past shutters that close as you pass. You walk past guards who do not speak, who shift uneasily, who are unused to this kind of presence. You do not burn, you do not loot. You are watched, and you are watching. The king, they say, is only 14, but he will meet you. He must. There are too many to ignore, too many to dismiss. You wait, you sing, you share food with strangers. You walk the streets that once seemed mythic, barefoot on cobbles carved by hands like yours. You are not noble, not educated, not born to lead, but here you are, and the world is listening. The city is not quiet, but it holds its breath. The crowds have arrived, not just a handful, not a scattered assembly of villagers, but thousands. They fill the fields outside London, spill through its southern gates, press into streets that were never meant to hold so many. And still they are calm, still they wait. You are among them. You stand in the shadow of buildings taller than trees, stone walls soot-streaked and proud. You hear the voices of merchants from balconies above, hear doors bolted from the inside, hear bells that ring for unknown reasons. You are not here to conquer, you are here to be heard, and yet change rarely waits on silence. At first the targets are precise. The prison at Maidstone is opened. John Ball walks free. His voice, once caged, now echoes across courtyards and city lanes. He does not shout. He speaks as he always has, clearly, evenly. No man should be another's master. No lord should rule by birth. Then comes the tower. It looms over the Thames, grey and cold. A symbol, a fortress, a cage, and still it is breached. Not in fire, not with siege ladders, but with presence. A crowd surges, not wild, but insistent. The gates, inexplicably, are opened. Some say by fear, some say by sympathy. What matters is this: the peasants walk inside the Tower of London. It is strange, surreal, the very heart of royal authority, of noble privilege, and now filled with farmers, shepherds, smiths. Boots damp with field water tread upon flagstones once walked by kings. The air is tight with disbelief. The rooms echo with the scuff of uninvited steps. There is no decorum, but neither is there chaos. And then the executions, not by trial, not in secrecy. Simon Sudbury, Archbishop of Canterbury. Robert Hales, Lord High Treasurer. Figures of wealth, of burden, of tax and tithe. Their names whispered curses in village lanes, now face to face with those they once burdened. They are dragged outside. The crowd watches, not cheering, not sobbing, only witnessing. The axe falls. There is blood, and it stains the cobblestones. But even now, it is not frenzy. It is judgment, final, absolute, and for many, justified. You do not watch closely, you do not wish to, but you do not turn away. Not everyone approves, but no one stops it. Then the Savoy Palace, John of Gaunt's residence, the richest, most ornate private home in the city. Tall windows, delicate tapestries, tiled floors imported from distant shores. It stands like a monument to inequality, silk behind locked doors, while the people beg for bread. And so it burns. The crowd enters, but does not plunder. They do not steal, only destroy. Tapestries torn, cellars smashed, furniture flung through windows. The wine is poured into the streets, not drunk. They carry no spoils, only smoke. You watch it from a distance, the flames dancing behind a screen of rising ash. It is not beautiful. It is not triumphant, but it feels necessary. The palace collapses bit by bit. Wood blackens, stone cracks, glass shatters in soft pops. The sky above London darkens with soot. And still, the city watches. Still the king remains unseen, but he cannot remain so forever. You hear it whispered along the line. A meeting will happen. The boy king, Richard, will speak to the leaders. To Wat Tyler. A place is chosen, Smithfield. The city pulses around you. Some go home, some linger, but most stay. Not from bloodlust, but from belief. That something is possible now, that the march meant something, that this strange moment when the lowest walked among palaces might not be erased. You sit on the edge of a well, the air thick with the scent of ash and iron. Children play near you, children who have seen things no child should, but they do not cry. They laugh as children do, chasing shadows, skipping stones across puddles. Night falls slowly over the rooftops. The fires have dimmed, the shouting has stopped, but the city still hums. You lie on a pile of cloth beside a market stall. The stones beneath you are warm from the day. You cannot sleep easily. The smell of burning clings to your clothes, but the quiet around you feels earned. Tomorrow, you think, will bring answers, but you do not know what kind. Not yet. Morning arrives not with a shout, but with a hush. The smoke has cleared. The streets, though altered, are quiet again. A strange, tentative stillness hangs in the air. London has not fallen. It has opened its eyes after a long, uneasy sleep. The people wait. not with pitchforks raised or torches lit, but with hands in pockets, with shoulders slumped, with bread shared from sleeve to sleeve. You are among them, tired, unsure, but drawn still by something unfinished, something unresolved. Word spreads, the king will meet Wat Tyler. It feels like the end of a story you've only just learned how to read. You make your way to Smithfield, a broad, open field just outside the city walls. There's a market here, usually, but today the stalls are bare. The crowds gather in clusters, not too close, not too far. You find your place among them, feet sore, eyes stinging from the sleepless night. And you wait. The air is warm, too warm. The kind that settles on the back of your neck and makes the world feel heavier than it is. Horses snort nearby. Steel glints in the distance, but no weapons are drawn. Not yet. Then he arrives. Wat Tyler. Not on a throne, not in fine clothes. He rides a horse, yes. But there is no ceremony, no guards flanking him in gold or red. Just a man of the people, riding steadily forward. He does not look afraid. His face is worn, but calm. His gaze does not shift. His hands rest lightly on the reins. He carries no banner. His voice, when it rises to greet the king, is measured, deliberate, confident. He speaks not just for himself, but for everyone here. He asks the king for freedom, not vengeance, not land seized or thrones overturned, just freedom, that every man be free to labor where he chooses, that rents be fair, that laws treat all equally, that the people who grow the food, who build the homes, who tend the flocks, not be treated as property. And for a moment, a flicker of possibility moves through the crowd. The boy king listens. Richard is 14. His expression unreadable, his voice quiet. He nods, he agrees. Yes, he says, you shall have your charter. You do not cheer, you do not celebrate, you wait, because something in the air is not right. The conversation shifts, a misunderstanding. A signal misread, Tyler dismounts. He walks toward the king's men. Some say to drink, some say to speak again. A hand moves, a voice is raised. No one knows exactly what was said, but the air tightens. There is a scuffle, then a blade flashes. Wat Tyler is struck. Once, then again, he falls. You do not see the blood, but you hear the sound, like a sack of grain dropped onto damp earth. A thud too final, a motion stopped mid-thought, a gasp ripples through the crowd, then silence. You do not run, you cannot, no one moves, thousands stand frozen, breath caught in collective disbelief. One moment, a man was speaking, the next, he is gone. And no one quite knows what to do with the space he has left behind. The king speaks. I will be your leader, he says. I will grant your demands, and still, no one cheers. Because Tyler does not rise. The crowd begins to retreat. Not in panic, not in flight, but in confusion. In the quiet, wounded gait of those who've lost something they hadn't known they could lose. You step back slowly. Someone touches your shoulder. You do not know who, but the gesture is kind, reassuring. You both look one last time toward the field, where the dust begins to settle and the boy king stands alone. And then you walk away. The march ends not with a cry, but with footsteps fading into alleys and lanes, into hedgerows and hills, into the winding paths of home. Some say Tyler was beheaded later that day. Some say his head was placed on a spike and paraded through the city. You do not need to see it. You already carry the weight of his fall. The road home is quieter. There are fewer voices now. Fewer footsteps keeping pace beside you. Some have gone by other paths. Some remain behind. But most, like you, walk back not with the certainty of victory, nor the sting of defeat, but with a strange, hollow stillness. Wat Tyler is dead. The king has made promises, and you are still alive. That in itself feels remarkable. The countryside looks the same. The hedges still bloom, the lanes still wind, the sheep still graze, heads bowed low to the ground. But something is different, not on the surface, not in what the eye can see, but deeper, like a bruise that hasn't risen yet. You return to your village. The roofs are still crooked, the fields still need ploughing, the steward's door still sticks. But the people look at you differently, not with awe, not even with fear, with questions. Did it matter? You cannot say. Not yet. The days resume their familiar rhythm. Dawn breaks, mist curls above the fields, and the same tools are lifted with the same tired hands. But in the quiet spaces between labour, in the moments when the plough stalls or the animals are fed, you catch eyes lingering a little longer. A look passed between neighbours. A nod shared not from greeting, but memory. They remember, even if they say nothing. In the weeks that follow, the king's promises begin to wither. The charters handed out, signed in careful script, are revoked, declared null, declared issued under duress. His council says he was frightened, that the rebels broke faith, that justice must be restored. Some are hunted, some are hanged, a few villages are fined, others are left alone. You remain, you are not punished, not openly, but you are watched. The bailiff visits more often now. He asks strange questions: where you were, whom you spoke to. You answer as little as you can, not from fear, but from fatigue, from knowing that words, once loose, do not always land where you want them to. Still you do not regret going. Not entirely, because something was seen, something heard. In those few days, the lowest walked beside kings. The poor entered the tower. The voiceless spoke. And though the rulers reasserted their power, they could not unsee what had been shown. The slum had spoken, and it had been understood. For the first time, the idea that a man might not be born to servitude, that he might choose whom he serves and why, had not only been whispered, but shouted across city stones and palace halls. That idea would not die. Feudal bonds, though not broken, were weakened. Slowly, over years and decades, they would fray. Serfdom, once the iron weight of rural life, began to fade, not from mercy, not from reform, but from the memory of fear. The lords remembered the march, the king remembered the crowd, and you quietly daily remember the road. You live your life now with both weariness and quiet strength. You do not speak of the revolt often. There is no point. Most have moved on. The fields still demand labor. The seasons still turn. Lambs are born. Crops fail and flourish in turn. But sometimes when you walk alone at dusk and the sky turns the color of worn ash, you think of that long road, of Blackheath, of the Tower, of Smithfield. You remember the faces, the songs, the silence before the fire, the ache in your legs as you stood beneath city walls. You remember Wat Tyler's voice, level, clear, and the space he left behind. You don't need statues to remember. You don't need scrolls or sermons. The memory is not a monument. It is a seed, carried forward, planted again, quietly. And though the lords pretend it never happened, their walls are rebuilt a little stronger, their guards stationed a little sooner, their taxes written a little more carefully, because they, too, remember not the blood, not the fire, but the presence, that thousands once stood where only lords dared tread, that men with no banners, no crests, no noble names crossed bridges and entered courts, that for one flickering moment the world tilted and did not break. Not all lessons are taught by victory. Some are etched by the nearness of change. You hear stories of others in distant counties, a reeve who is no longer feared, a lord who lowers his dues ever so slightly, a priest who preaches a different kind of gospel, still careful but kinder. They are small things, but they spread. The slum does not rise again, not yet, but it no longer sleeps the way it once did. At the edge of your village, near the old hedgerows, someone has carved a small symbol into a stone. 2 lines crossed, a circle beneath. You've seen it before. Years ago, you do not touch it, but you nod as you pass. It hasn't faded, not everything does. Time moves on, children grow, the world shifts in quiet inches. And in those inches, in the hush between the storms of history, people live. You wake now, each morning, to the same soft grey light as before. You lace your boots, step out into the lane, lift the same tools, but your back is a little straighter, your thoughts a little broader. The world somehow feels different, not freer, not yet, but less fixed. And that in its own way is something. You notice it first in your hands, not pain, not some grand wound or weeping sore, just a change, a place where the feeling doesn't return the same way. You press your thumb into your palm, the skin blanches as always, but something is missing. The pressure is there, the sensation is dull, not quite absent, but wrong. You think little of it at first. You have sheep to tend, kindling to gather, a roof that leaks when the rain falls heavy. You've no time for wondering. It's a bruise, perhaps, or the cold. The winter has lingered, and your hands are never fully warm anymore. The wind wraps itself around your fingers like a warning, but warnings are easy to ignore when life calls you forward. Still, in the quiet hours when your work is done and your limbs fall heavy with rest, the feeling lingers. It spreads slowly. A numbness behind the knuckles, a strange tightness at the joints, a tingling that comes and goes like a restless spirit. You do not speak of it. Not to your brother. Not to the old woman down the lane who always asks too many questions. You hide it beneath sleeves, beneath silence. There is always a reason to explain it away. You fell once, carrying kindling. You scraped your skin on that thorn hedge near the gate. You must be getting older. But still the numbness grows. A patch of skin on your arm, once pink, once flushed from the sun, now pale, dry and cracked. No matter how much you scrub, no matter how often you bathe, it remains. Worse, it spreads. Slowly, quietly, you begin to notice that people are keeping their distance. Not obviously, not cruelly, just subtly. The children no longer cling to your knees when you pass. The baker no longer hands the loaf directly to your palm. He leaves it on the edge of the stall instead. Your name is spoken more softly, more slowly, as if it carries weight now, as if it might carry something else. You look at your hands again one morning, beneath a sky thick with mist. The skin is rough, thicker than before. Your fingertips feel smooth, but not in a way that's comforting. The creases are fading. The shape is the same, but they no longer feel like yours. You press a hot iron to the outer edge of your wrist. You wait. You see the redness before you feel the heat. And then you feel nothing at all. You are afraid, not of death, but of what might come before it. You've seen them before, the ones sent away, wrapped in wool even in summer, walking slow behind hedgerows, some with bells around their necks or wooden clappers in their palms. You've seen them and you've looked away, not because you hated them, but because you were told not to look, not to speak, not to cross paths. Now you understand why. You do not want to be seen. You begin to avoid the market. You keep your hood drawn low. You stop attending mass. You leave your offerings at the chapel steps and retreat before the others arrive. You begin to walk in the evening long after the sun has dipped low behind the trees, when only the dogs and the owls are awake. One night you overhear your name. 2 men. Near the well. Speaking low, but not low enough. His hand, did you see it? No, but I heard. Old Mary says he covers it now. Won't be long. And then silence. You walk past them without meeting their eyes. They do not stop you. They do not call your name. But the knowing is there. The knowledge is spreading faster than the illness. You try to remember when you last felt untouched, whole, clean in the way people mean when they speak of health. Not just unmarked, but unjudged. The memory slips through your fingers. The priest visits once at dusk. He does not come inside. He stands by the fence. He speaks with compassion, but not familiarity. He asks if you've been feeling well. You nod. You lie. He does not press. But when he leaves, he traces the sign of the cross more slowly than usual, as if marking a grave. Soon, you know, they will come. Not with fire, not with chains, but with robes and readings and the calm weight of certainty. They will ask you to present your hands, to show them your feet, to let them peer beneath your tunic. They will speak of charity, of God's will, of protection. They will not say exile, but that is what it will be. You sleep that night on the floor, away from your own bed. The straw feels damp beneath you. The fire is low, but you do not rise to stoke it. You dream of a road that never ends, a path lined with trees whose branches point away from home. You dream of silence, not peace, not solitude, just silence. The next morning, your neighbor does not wave. Your milk is not collected. A message is left at your door, not written, but spoken, over and over, until the words no longer hold warmth. They're coming. And so, you wait. Not because you want to, but because there is nowhere else to go. You pack your things, though you do not know what to bring. What is useful to a person who no longer belongs anywhere? A blanket, a bit of bread, the small wooden carving your sister gave you before she married. You carry it in your pocket. You do not know why, perhaps because it still feels like something from before. When they arrive, they are kind, too kind. Their words are soft, their faces unreadable. They ask you questions you no longer need answered. They examine your skin, they write your name in a book. They speak the words, and you become something else, no longer a person, a leper. They do not come in secret. They do not hide. The men arrive in robes, 2 clerics, 1 lay scribe. They walk with a solemnity that draws no attention, yet leaves a silence in their wake. Their voices are quiet, not cruel, not unkind, but quiet in a way that makes the world feel smaller. You are asked to come outside, not far, just beyond the cottage. The grass is still damp with morning dew. A bird calls overhead, but no one speaks of it. The sun is low, casting long shadows across the path, and still no one mentions the warmth. These men have done this before. One speaks, the other watches. The scribe writes, "You are asked to bare your hands, then your arms, then your feet." The cloth is drawn back gently. The cleric does not flinch, though his eyes hold a soft sorrow. He murmurs prayers under his breath, not loud enough to share, only loud enough to hear himself. He asks questions. When did it begin? Does it burn? Does it weep? You answer honestly. You no longer remember when it began, only that it has not ended. You cannot recall the last time your skin healed cleanly, or when warmth returned to your fingers after the cold. The scribe nods as you speak. He records the details in neat, angled Latin script. You cannot read it, but you do not need to. The verdict is already written in your body. The judgment comes not in the form of law, nor sword, nor fire, but ritual, ancient, deliberate, and terrifying in its gentleness. You are led to the chapel. the same one where you were christened, where you once heard sermons, squirming beside your mother on the bench, where you once whispered prayers for a good harvest, for a child to recover from fever, for spring to come quickly. Now you kneel there again. But the prayers are not for blessings. They are for farewell. The priest begins the rite with a whisper. In the name of Christ, who healed the leper and the blind. His voice is steady. He does not look away from you. In the name of the Church, which shelters all souls, even the most afflicted. The others gather at the edges, not many, only those who must. They do not look at you directly, they look around you, through you. The priest circles you once with holy water, casting droplets that land on your shoulders, your head. He traces the sign of the cross 3 times in the air, and then once, lightly, on your brow. Then comes the burial, not of body, but of self. He announces your death, not as metaphor, not as poetry, but as proclamation. You are now as one dead to the world of the clean. You are no longer bound by its laws, nor protected by its kinship. You belong now to God and to the Lazar. Your name is spoken once more, then no more. They hand you your garments, not the ones you wore in, not your tunic, not your shoes, new ones. A dark robe, coarse and heavy, tied with a rough cord, a hood that falls low over your face. You are not to be seen again as yourself. A pair of gloves for your hands, lest your touch offend. A wooden clapper to hold when you walk so others might hear you coming. And a bell, small, plain, without decoration, to wear around your neck. It will mark you more clearly than any scar. You take them in silence. You do not cry. You do not shout. You only nod. The priest blesses your journey. He does not offer to walk with you. No one does. Outside the chapel, a cart waits. It is not a prisoner's cart. It is not a hearse. It is something between the two. You climb aboard. There are no reins. The mule knows the way. You pass familiar fields, the ones you once ploughed. You pass the hill where you once sat with friends, laughing over things that no longer seem real. You pass the well where you once drew water with your brother. No one is there. Or if they are, they do not raise their hands. The bell swings gently with each turn of the wheels. Its sound is soft, almost delicate, but there is no mistaking it. The road winds beyond the village, through the woods, past the old Roman stones that mark where the fields end. The trees grow closer now, the air cooler. Your hands tighten on the edge of the cart. At a crossroads, the mule stops. The path to the left curves sharply, overgrown and narrow. You step down. The driver, if he was ever a driver, does not speak. He turns the cart slowly without glancing back. You are alone now. You walk. The clapper rests in your palm. You do not use it yet. The woods part ahead, revealing a low stone wall, crumbling, laced with ivy. Beyond it, 3 buildings, small, wooden. Their roofs sag with damp. Their shutters hang loose. This is your new home. You cross the threshold of the leper's house not with terror, but with quiet, with the steady, mournful dignity of someone who already knew the end before the story began. A woman greets you at the door. She is wrapped in a robe like yours. She does not smile, but she does not flinch. She shows you to your bed, a low frame of wood with straw. She places a bowl beside it, bread, a small jug of ale, a cloth for your face. No words are exchanged. They are not needed. You sit. The room is quiet. The smell of herbs hangs in the air. Sage, perhaps, or lavender. Someone has tried to make it bearable. A fire crackles in a stone hearth. You hear coughs from another room, a prayer being murmured through the wall, and above all, the bell, hanging from a hook near the door. You will wear it tomorrow, not today, not yet. Tonight, you sleep, you lie down, and you dream, not of illness, nor exile, nor judgment, but of silence. A silence that stretches wide like a field untouched by footsteps, a silence you now belong to. You wake to the sound of birdsong. It is distant, muffled, not because the birds are far, but because the world here is quieter by design. There is no bustling street, no shouting vendors, no hammering of iron, only the gentle stirrings of a life lived behind the hedge. The light spills in through a slatted shutter, thin as a reed. Dust dances in the air, drifting lazily, unconcerned with your presence. It is morning, or something near it. There is no bell to mark the hour, only the shift of light and the slow awakening of bodies long accustomed to stillness. You rise slowly. The straw mattress crackles beneath you, shedding fragments of the previous night. Your robe is where you left it, folded carefully at the foot of your bed. You dress with practiced motion, wrapping the hood around your head, tying the cord with fingers that have forgotten some of their strength. The room smells of smoke and rosemary. Someone lit the hearth early, a small mercy. The air is already cold, even in spring. The stones underfoot retain the memory of winter long after the frost has lifted. You step outside. The colony, your world now, is smaller than most villages. A single, low building, long and narrow, holds the sleeping quarters. Another houses the kitchen, where meals are prepared in silence. A third, made of crumbling stone and timber, serves as a chapel. There is a fourth structure at the edge of the clearing, once a barn, now a place for supplies. A small fenced garden lies beyond it, planted with onions, leeks, and mint, thin crops, but resilient. You walk slowly. No one rushes here. Time does not command. It lingers. A woman is already at the well drawing water with quiet strength. She does not greet you, but her nod is gentle. Her hands are wrapped in linen. One of her eyes is clouded, but her grip on the rope is firm. A boy tends the garden. He hums to himself, a tune so soft it could be mistaken for the wind. He does not turn when you pass. You sit on a bench near the fire pit. Your joints ache more in the mornings now. The heat helps. Soon the meal bell will sound. Not the large bronze bells of the town, but a small one hung from a wooden post. It will be rung by the oldest among you, a man named Benoit, who no longer speaks but moves with slow certainty. He has been here longer than any other. When the bell rings, you rise. You move with the others to the kitchen. The bread is coarse but fresh. The broth thin but hot. Each person takes their turn. There is no pushing, no competition. Hunger exists here, but without hurry. You sit together on low stools. You do not speak. There are words here when needed, but conversation is rare. Not forbidden, just distant. As if each voice must travel farther, not across space, but across grief, across memory. You eat, and then you return to your place. Some tend the garden, some sew, some prepare herbs, dried leaves, sorted into cloth sachets to soothe joints and ease the skin. You help gather firewood. It is not noble work, it is not hard, but it is yours. And that is something. The days pass like this, measured in tasks, not clocks. The rhythm of the colony is slow but constant, a quiet hum beneath the surface. Once a week a priest comes, he does not enter. He speaks from the other side of the hedge. He offers the host through a long wooden spoon so that no skin might touch. He leaves bread and scripture, and then he goes. You do not resent him. He fears what you carry, you understand. You used to fear it too. Sometimes pilgrims pass by on the road beyond. They do not enter the gate, but they leave things behind. A loaf, a jug of ale, a cloth wrapped in herbs. They do not linger, but their presence is felt. They do not forget you, not entirely. At night, the sky above the colony is wide and unbroken. No lanterns dim the stars. The darkness is deep, but not frightening. You learn to listen to it. The way the wind moves through trees, the distant bark of a fox, the soft rhythmic breathing of others in the dormitory. You sleep near the door. By choice. You like to hear the world beyond, even faintly. Each night you remove your bell and place it beside your bed. You run your fingers over its rim. It has no decoration, no inscription, but you know every curve, every worn groove. It has become part of you, and yet there are days when you forget it's there at all. Some mornings you rise before the sun. You walk along the path inside the hedge, bare feet pressing into dew-wet grass. The cold stings, but it reminds you that you are still here, still present, still alive. You pause at the edge of the garden. A single rose bush, untamed and thorny, blooms near the fence. You did not plant it. No one claims to have. But it blooms each year, bright and wild, a defiance of the silence. You touch one petal, lightly, just enough to feel the softness. You do not pluck it. Nothing is taken here that is not offered. You return to the dormitory as the light brightens. You take your seat near the hearth. You wrap your robe close, and you wait for the day to begin again. You no longer mark time as you once did. There are no festivals here, no market days, no saints' processions, but there is rhythm, there is structure. And inside that quiet frame, you live. You do not speak of hope. You do not speak of healing, but you do speak of small things. A bird that returned to the roof after many weeks. A new batch of bread that rose more than expected. A story from someone's youth, told slowly, as if recalling a dream. These things pass between you like offerings, and though your names are not shouted across cities nor carved into stone, they are remembered here, spoken softly by those who share your table. In the Lazar house you are not forgotten, you are not lost, you are simply a part, and that for now is enough. You do not see them approach, but you know they've come. Their footsteps carry a rhythm you have come to recognize, the soft hesitation of someone who does not want to be seen looking, the shuffle of uncertainty, the long pause just beyond the hedgerow, where they decide whether to knock or simply leave the offering and go. This one lingers, a rustle, a murmur. Then the sound of cloth scraping stone. By the time you reach the gate, the figure is already receding, a dark cloak moving steadily back toward the road. They do not turn. On the low wall near the entrance, you find the gift, bread wrapped in linen, 3 small coins, and a scrap of parchment bearing a prayer. There is no name, but you whisper a thank you anyway, because even in anonymity the gesture speaks. It is not uncommon. Pilgrims pass through from time to time, making their slow journeys to shrines and cathedrals, crossing the narrow roads that bind the world together. They come not to see you, but to be seen by God, to fulfill a vow, to ease a burden. And you are part of the ritual, a necessary symbol, a reminder of mercy. They do not speak to you, but they speak near you. They kneel just outside the gate, sometimes bowing their heads, sometimes crossing themselves as if to ward away what clings to your skin. They mumble words half remembered from sermons. Some cry, some tremble, some leave quickly as if being near you might delay their journey or damn it. Others linger. They ask you to pray for them, and you do, not because you must, but because in their voices you hear something familiar. Fear, not of illness, but of being cast out, because in the world beyond, leprosy is more than a disease. It is a story, told in parables, woven into sermons. The leper is the sinner made visible, the body marked by God. Your scars are not yours alone. They are symbols carried forward by the clergy, pressed into the minds of children. Lessons meant to teach humility and penance. You know these stories. You once heard them yourself from a wooden pew in the warmth of a crowded chapel. The man who hid his pride and was struck down. The woman who whispered gossip and was marked by sores. The knight who failed to return a stolen relic and whose flesh decayed by divine decree. They do not speak of you by name, but they speak of you all the same. You are penance, walking, a moving mirror of the soul laid bare. But you do not feel sinful. You do not feel holy. You feel human, tired, cold, sometimes hungry, sometimes content. You pray not for forgiveness, but for rain when the well runs low, for sun when the herbs rot in the shade, for peace in the aching of your joints. And still they come, not many, not often, but enough. Children clinging to mothers' skirts, old men muttering prayers, young women crossing themselves, eyes wide with wonder and terror. They leave offerings, hoping to balance a scale only they can see. Bread for mercy, alms for grace, a whispered Ave for the easing of a soul. You are not asked to respond. You are only to receive. One man, a monk from some nearby priory, comes once each month. He leaves a pot of honey, a spool of thread, a vial of vinegar steeped with rosemary. Each time he recites the same words. I give this not in pity, but in remembrance. For you are as Christ was, cast aside but never abandoned. You do not know his name, but you remember his voice, soft, certain, not afraid. There are others too who speak differently. They do not pray, they do not bow, they stare. Children, usually, peering through the trees, climbing rocks to glimpse the leper's world. Their curiosity has not yet been pressed into silence. Sometimes they laugh, sometimes they run, sometimes they throw stones, not in cruelty, but in fear that mimics the adults who whispered too loudly when they thought no one heard. You do not shout at them. You do not chase them. You simply ring the bell. A soft sound, a reminder that you are near, that you are not invisible, that you carry something they do not yet understand. The clergy speak of you in contradictions. You are blessed because you suffer. You are cursed because you decay. You are to be pitied and yet avoided. You are to be prayed for and yet fenced away. You are a contradiction carved into flesh. Some say you are closer to heaven than any priest or bishop, cleansed not through sacrament, but through suffering, that your affliction is a ladder leading you upward. Others see only the sores. They see a warning, not a lesson. They see judgment, not grace. You learn not to try to change their minds. You accept their gifts. You endure their glances. You stand still and silent as they pass, and in your quiet you remind them, not of sin, not of God, but of fragility, of what lies just beyond the hedge, of what it means to be seen, not for what you are, but for what others fear becoming. Sometimes, as you sit beneath the chapel eave, the sun warming your knees, you think of what it might be like to walk among them again, without the robe, without the bell, without the word leper shadowing your every step, but only sometimes. Because in the quiet of this place, in the rhythm of its days, you have found something, not peace, not absolution, but a kind of clarity. You are not what they believe you are. You are not a punishment. You are not a parable. You are a person, changed, marked, but still whole, in ways they may never understand. And so you pray. for them, for their fear, for their trembling hands as they leave bread at the gate, for their whispered prayers, for the moments when they dare to meet your eyes and see not a lesson, not a curse, not a saint, but someone watching, someone breathing, someone living. Time slows in a leper's world. It does not halt, it does not stop entirely, but it stretches softly, like warmed wax, under the weight of its own stillness. The days are not marked by bells or market noise or clatter from beyond the gates. They are marked instead by small signs, the call of a bird you have not heard since spring, the way frost clings longer to the windows each morning, the quality of the light through slatted shutters, pale in winter, golden and low in summer, grey more often than not. There are no clocks here, only the body, only the sun. You wake when the sky brightens and sleep when the shadows stretch too far to chase. You rise slowly, easing joints that no longer obey without protest. The ache in your limbs is familiar now, no longer frightening. It is not something you cure, it is something you learn to greet. The smells change first. In the winter, smoke seeps into every thread of your robe. The hearth burns slow and steady, fed with what dry wood can be gathered. The scent lingers in your hair, your sleeves, the very air. It becomes a kind of comfort, a reminder of warmth, even when warmth is fleeting. When the weather warms and green returns to the hills beyond the hedge, the air fills with the sharper tang of herbs. Rosemary, rue, pennyroyal, hung from hooks near the door, scattered over the floor, pressed into salves to soothe the skin. In spring the garden stirs, not grand rows of wheat or barley, but small stubborn patches of life. Onions that push their way from dark soil, leeks that bend with the breeze, mint that creeps between stones and smells of something clean. The scents drift in through open shutters, mingling with the faint bitterness of vinegar steeped in brass pots, and the soft, sweet must of straw beds turned daily. There are few voices in your world, but many sounds. A pot boiling over in the kitchen house, the clatter of a dropped ladle, the soft shush of someone folding cloth, the rattle of prayer beads between long, thin fingers, sometimes a laugh, low and sudden, startling in its rarity. More often, silence. Not the silence of absence, the silence of presence without need, the silence of lives lived side by side, no longer pressing against time. The seasons come like memories. In summer, the sun sits longer above the hedge, casting sharp lines on the ground. You sit with others in the shadow of the chapel, legs stretched before you, letting warmth soak through your robe. The bees hum near the rosemary bushes, and you watch them flit with industry you no longer possess. No one speaks, there is no rush. You could sit for hours. Sometimes you do. Autumn brings wind, not the kind that howls, but the kind that creeps beneath the eaves and sighs through cracks in the shutters. Leaves gather in corners of the compound, dry and brittle, like pages of forgotten books. The garden withers, the onions are pulled, the mint retreats. The air begins to smell faintly of damp stone and of wool that has been worn too long between washings. Winter presses down hardest. It is not the cold alone, though the cold is constant. It is the darkness. The way the sky narrows, the way your breath mists before you, even indoors, the way your fingers move slower than your thoughts. Some mornings the frost lingers until midday. You wake to find your water basin sealed with a thin sheen of ice. Your hands, stiff and red, struggle to untie the knots of your robe. Inside the hearth burns day and night. Its smoke creeps along the beams, settles into the cracks between stones. You huddle near it with the others, sharing warmth without words. The scent of wood smoke becomes part of you. It soaks into the wool of your sleeves, the curve of your collar. You carry it with you like a second skin. There are rituals that mark the turning of time, though they are quiet ones. You help mend robes in late autumn before the winds rise. You grind dried herbs into powder in spring when hands grow steadier again. You scrub the stone basin each week, not because it is dirty, but because the act reminds you of order, of effort, of still being able to affect the world around you. Once a year, the priest brings candles at dusk. He leaves them in a wooden box just inside the gate, thick, white, and scentless. You and the others light them inside the chapel, one by one, and let them burn until their bases melt into puddles. You do not speak. You do not explain what they are for, but you each remember someone, a name, a face, a time before. The seasons also bring new arrivals, not many, but some. They come as you did, quiet, uncertain, carrying nothing but what they were allowed to keep. Their faces marked by fear or by something deeper. You make space. You give them what you can. A corner near the hearth, a roll of cloth for their bed, a piece of bread torn gently in half. You do not ask their story, you already know it. And so the days repeat. The sky shifts. The winds turn. The smells change from wood smoke to mint to damp wool and back again. You stop trying to count them. You no longer ask how long it has been. But sometimes, on mornings when the light slants, just so through the chapel's window, you remember the passage of time in other ways. By the way your joints feel before the rain, by the way the boy who once whispered to himself now walks with surety, taller than the chapel door, by the fact that you no longer startle at your reflection in the polished copper basin. You know the face now. You accept it. The leper's world is not a prison. It is a narrowing, a distillation, a place where the noise of the world falls away, and what remains is steady and quiet and wholly yours. Outside, they mark time with feasts and festivals, with tolling bells and raucous cries. But here you mark time by what you notice. The feel of warm bread in your palm, the way rosemary cracks underfoot after a frost, the hush that settles over the garden at dusk when the air holds the last breath of the sun. These are your seasons now. These are your days. And though they pass slowly, they pass gently. And that in its own way is enough. When death comes here, it comes quietly. There are no processions, no tolling of the great bell, no priest swinging incense along the nave, no linen shroud embroidered with family crest or saintly seal, no black-clad mourners gathered in pews to offer weeping prayers. There is only stillness, one less bowl to fill in the morning, one fewer figure hunched by the hearth, one bed left empty, the straw left unturned. The death is not always expected. Sometimes the signs have crept in for weeks, a cough deepening, the sleep growing longer, the walk shortening until it becomes a slow shuffle, and then a stillness altogether. Other times it arrives like a breath cut short, a silence that was not planned, a moment when someone simply does not rise. You remember the first death you witnessed here? It was early in your time. A man named Gerard. His voice had been gravelly but kind. He would hum while tending the rosemary, always off tune but persistent. You hadn't known him well. No one did. But he was always there, and then one morning he wasn't. One morning there was no wailing, no display, just a quiet gathering around his bed, a cross made of twigs laid upon his chest, his body wrapped in the robe he had worn daily, hands folded over his chest, a bowl of mint water placed near his feet. 4 of you carried him to the corner of the garden just beyond the hedge, where the stones were loose and the earth shallow. The ground had been turned before. It was not the first time. It would not be the last. There was no ceremony, but there was care. He was lowered gently. The earth returned slowly. You did not speak, but you remembered him. Each year you place a stone atop the spot, just one, a memory, small but certain. Over time, the graves form quiet rows. There are no names etched into stone, no epitaphs. Only stacked stones, wind-worn and lichen-draped, only silence. You wonder sometimes if the world beyond remembers. If a mother speaks your name to her children, warning them with stories not to wander near the edge of town. If a brother, still strong and whole, thinks of the day you left and whether you survived long past it. If a priest adds your name, unspoken but understood, to his list of the lost, you do not know, no letters come, no visitors call your name. But sometimes in early spring, when the snow has just melted and the roads become rivers of mud, someone leaves a ribbon tied around the hedge post. It is always the same ribbon. Blue, faded with age. You do not know whose hand ties it, but each year it appears. And each year you untie it and tuck it in the chapel eave. A memory kept safe from the wind. You imagine your death will come like Gerard's. Quiet, dignified, the last breath exhaled into straw. The robe folded clean. The bowl of mint water by your feet. You will be carried by hands that know your name, even if the world has forgotten it. And that, strangely, brings comfort. Because to be remembered here, behind the hedge among the others, is to be remembered truly, not for your illness, not for your bell, not for the word leper that once clung to you like shadow, but for the way you turned your head at birdsong, for the way you sat silently by the fire, for the way your hands, though bent and numb, still turned the soil each spring. Death here does not mean vanishing. It means becoming part of the quiet, part of the rhythm, part of the earth that feeds the rosemary and the mint, part of the hush at dusk when the sun disappears and the world folds inward. Some nights you lie awake and feel the presence of those who came before, not ghosts, spirits, just echoes, gentle reminders that you are not the first, that your life, small and quiet though it may seem, is stitched into a long, slow tapestry of others who live gently, away from the eyes of the world. You think of the graves, the stacked stones. You think of the ribbon, still tucked above the chapel door. You think of the silence that will follow your last breath, not hollow, but full. You close your eyes, and you feel at peace. Because even if the world forgets your name, the garden will remember your hands, the herbs will remember your tending, the stones will remember your footsteps, and the wind, soft through the hedge, will carry what remains, not sorrow, not loss, but presence, still and quiet and lasting.